The Destiny Islands. A world of mystery, magic, and hitting people with a stick. What I meant to say was that today I wanted to talk about the Destiny Islands, specifically from Kingdom Hearts 1. It's the first world in the game, although when I was little I wasn't too enthusiastic about it since I was always more excited to leave the island and head out into the world. Or I guess worlds. However, as I've gotten older, I've grown to appreciate this place more and more, kinda like the Roxas prologue from Kingdom Hearts 2. But I like Destiny Islands more now because of how it teaches the player how the game works in a more subtle way. And I would like to dive into this topic, give it a bit of analysis. So let's hop to it. Before waking up on the beach, I should mention that the tutorial technically starts before this point in the Station of Awakening. This portion of the tutorial is a lot less subtle, and rightly so, as it tells you the bare essentials on how to play the game. Like how to move, jump, interact with stuff, answer existential questions, you know, the basics. After being woken up from Dreamland, although not really Dreamland, because this is Dreamland, and I think this might be too, and I'm getting off topic, but you are introduced to Sora and his friends Riku and Kairi, who plan on leaving the island they call home to explore the outside world on a raft, which is in hindsight a horrible plan, but it's whatever. While those two get the raft all set up, you are tasked with finding materials and supplies. Already the game is trying to prepare you. There are a few instances throughout the game where you're basically expected to explore the world and figure things out without the game explicitly telling you, which could be a good or bad thing depending on who you ask. But regardless, collecting materials is the game's excuse for having you explore your surroundings. Although the game does give you a freebie with this log here, and I gotta give points for continuity since this does seem to be the same log that Riku threw at Sora's face in that cutscene earlier. I suppose it is a little ways off, but it's still a nice detail. But moving along, you'll find a cloth here and a rope there, and you'll be introduced to the concept of a ladder. Crazy, I know. Besides that, in order to get to this other log over here, you would have had to go through this shack. I mean, you can get up there without doing that, but I imagine most new players would go through the shack. But in here, there is a save point. You would have been introduced to them already by now, but here's another one, go nuts. But this demonstrates that the game isn't always going to show you where they are. Sometimes they can be tucked away. Anyway, after finding all the materials you need, you can hand them over to Kairi and be rewarded with a high potion and a pat on the back. And by the time you've found all that stuff, you'll probably be quite accustomed to the layout of the island. Or at least this half of the island. Yup, there's an entire back half to it. You are naturally pushed here on the second day, when you head over to where Kairi was standing on the first day for some instruction on what to do next. But when you get there, you'll notice that she's no longer blocking this door, allowing you to get to the other half of Destiny Island. You can also get there through this small window over here, showing that there are typically more ways than one to get somewhere. Anyway, Kairi wants you to find some food for the trip, but you can't do that until you've absolutely destroyed Riku in a race. You never really have to race anyone at any other point in the game, but this course does have a few different pathways for you to practice your platforming skills. You are expected to do a lot of it later, but you can go any route you want, just as long as you tag the magic oven timer. Oh, and here's a tip, free of charge. The zipline is probably the fastest way to go, but it's kinda tricky to use. Give this a try. Jump towards the zipline, but don't touch anything else on the controller once you've jumped. Sora should grab the zipline and begin riding it, but don't touch any buttons or move the analog stick. Don't even breathe. Doing so will cause Sora to have an early drop off. Just wait until you're at the end of the line, and then press the jump button to have a nice, safe landing. And then start bolting because you're still on the clock. Once the race is over, Riku will be smug about it regardless if you win or not, so have fun with that. Loser! Though if you do win, you'll get to pick a name for the raft, so make it count. With that little squabble out of the way, you can get back to business. Kairi's food scavenger hunt will take you to both sides of the island. Starting with the coconuts, you can get them from these big trees scattered all over. You have to hit them in order to get a coconut to drop down, but you specifically need these yellow ones that drop less frequently. What I believe the game is trying to teach here is that interacting with things multiple times can sometimes yield different results. Like there's this bit later in the game where you can ring this doorbell 3 times for an item, but nothing in that area indicates that you should ring it more than once. But the idea of ringing a bell 3 times may have been planted in your mind earlier in the game, when you were instructed to ring this big bell in Traverse Town 3 times to progress. And sure enough, ringing this completely unrelated doorbell thrice gives you an elixir, and I just think that's really cool. Where was I going with all that? Oh yeah, so what I'm saying is that there are a few cases later in the game where you can interact with something, but nothing comes of it until you've interacted with it a few times. And I think these coconuts may be alluding to that. Or I just read too much into things. That is also a distinct possibility. Okay, so up next you can go get the 3 fish at the front half of the island. You'd think that you'd need a fishing rod or something, but nope. You just reach in and grab them like the good old days. Then there are the 3 mushrooms. Nah, not those. That's the one. They're just hidden throughout the island. Nothing too special about them. Aside from I guess this one activating the cutscene with the potato sack man. Although one of them does require you to move this rock. You would have been taught to move objects earlier, so you can apply that here. Or you could just smash the rock, that's a thing. Oh yeah, we'll be needing some drinking water so we don't like dehydrate or something. Obviously the seawater won't work, but you can get some suitable water from the waterfall over here. Alternatively, you could get some from this secret tiny waterfall at the back half of the island. You know, for all the times that the game asks you to do something specific, it's actually kind of strange that you have 2 correct answers here. Though the whole game is littered with these tiny details and secrets, better keep an eye out. Last but certainly not least is the seagull egg. It makes sense for it to be on a tree, so it's just a matter of checking them all until you find it. Hacking away at the tree won't help this time, so you'll need to change your tactics. It's pretty easy to unintentionally stumble upon this, but you can jump on trees in order to climb them. You can climb more than just trees though, so this is something worth keeping in mind. Anyway, you just slither on up and grab your egg. That pure, scrumptious egg. I'm hungry. As an aside, you would have been introduced to treasure chests already, but the island only has one, and it's decently well hidden. You can find it on that small ledge up there, but it's too high to jump to, even with Sora's impressive frog stance. Again, while at the Station of Awakening, you were already taught how to pick up and move certain objects, and there just so happens to be a conveniently placed crate right here. This will allow you to get that little extra leg up to open that chest. Using crates and other movable objects to grab things slightly out of reach is definitely something that comes in handy, especially since this allows you to get to chests that you perhaps weren't intended to open until a bit later. Anyway, now that all of the supplies have been collected, you can once again hand them over to Kairi for another reward. Although before leaving, there is one other aspect of Destiny Island that I've neglected to mention, and that's the combat side of things. As you explore, you'll no doubt run into Selphie, Wakka and Tidus. You can have a nice little chat with them.
They say Seymour went to Macarena Temple
before getting challenged to a friendly game of beating the crap out of each other. In my humble opinion, these fights are meant to teach and test the player on how to deal with a few types of basic enemies and attacks that you'll encounter later in the game. Let's start with Wakka. His fight teaches you how to handle projectiles, as he primarily attacks by throwing blitz balls, although he will take a swipe at you if you get too close. When he throws a ball at you, if you time it right, you can actually deflect it back and even hit him with it if you know what you're doing. This will leave him dazed and open to attack, and this is also true for a lot of projectiles in the game. You could have done this against the dark side earlier too, but here you can practice in a safe environment with no consequences, aside from the utter humiliation and shame of defeat. If you did deflect his blitzballs, you'd probably notice these tech points that pop up. The game never really explains what these are, but it may not have to, and that's not just because I'm about to explain it. Tech points are additional experience points that you get for blocking or deflecting attacks, or even taking advantage of an enemy's weakness. Again, the game never tells you this, but you may just figure it out for yourself if you seemingly level up randomly when you haven't even defeated the enemy yet. Okay, moving on from Wakka, let's talk about Selphie. She doesn't have any projectiles, but she does fight with a skipping rope that grants her a bit more reach. I think her fight is a demonstration of how you sometimes need to wait out your opponent's attacks before seeing an opening. Most of her attacks cause her to be open afterwards, and lots of bosses in these games are like that, but it's definitely emphasized here. Like there's this forward lunge attack that she does, where sometimes she'll trip over and become very vulnerable. She also likes to chase you down with this sweeping attack, but eventually she'll get tired, and then you've got yourself a fancy opening there too. Alternatively, you can parry the attack to get an even better opening if you're feeling bold. But the strategy of waiting for your opening or parrying for one is something that you'll be able to make use of a lot later in the game, and in the series in general. So it's a good thing you have this safe place to practice, huh? But seriously, show no mercy. Next on our hit list is Tidus. Some say Tidus, but the meaning is the same. He fights with a metal pole, which has always struck me as a tad overkill, but who am I to argue? Tidus is a close range attacker, and his fight is a demonstration on maneuvering around your opponent to get the upper hand. You can stay in close proximity with him and you'll be all good as long as you're slippery about it. Be that through moving around him or by jumping, you'll have the best luck with attacking from his blind spot since he's likely to deflect your strikes with his own if you tackle him head on. But bear in mind that yeah, you can maneuver around him for an opening, but he can do that to you too, so watch out. Now that you defeated the terrible trio individually, you can tackle them all at once in a 3v1 deathmatch. Oh, it's not to the death? Alright. After all, learning to fight one-on-one is all well and good, but the Heartless aren't just gonna wait around and attack you one at a time. You gotta learn how to handle a crowd. This training exercise may seem a tad extreme, but Sora needs to learn this stuff. It's for his own good. Anyway, you can apply the same basic strategies for tackling them individually, but you'll just have to be more aware of your surroundings so you don't get snuck up on. Although, you can trick them into hitting each other, like by deflecting Wakka's blitzballs. It makes a lot of sense, not everyone can be as good a team player as me. So now that you defeated all of them, there is one more challenge to overcome, the fight against Riku. You can only fight Riku on the first day, by the way, so don't miss out on it. This fight exists to be a real test of what you've learnt so far. It's essentially the Destiny Island equivalent of an optional super boss. So let's put him under a magnifying glass and see what makes him tick. If there's one thing that Riku excels in, it's catching you out. I mean, it's not like his skills in racing or anything special. Most of his moves are designed to throw you off. You just gotta dance the dance and not fall for his tricks. He likes to throw out a few basic strikes here and there and leap around to keep you on your toes. He's open if you can catch him right after he tries to attack, or right after landing from a jump, which I find to be quite common with a lot of Kingdom Hearts bosses. If you do manage to hit him when he's open, you're still not safe. Sometimes after you land a hit, he'll jump backwards and curl up. He's trying to bait you here, don't fall for it. After a second, he'll spring forward and it'll really hurt if it hits you, and you can't interrupt him by attacking. Just move out of the way, and I should mention that he will typically dodge right after he springs forward, so he's still trying to catch you out in case you try and hit him right after this attack. One other thing he likes to do is guard with his sword while egging you on. This is a pretty obvious trap. If you attack him while he does this, he'll block it. If you attack him 3 times, he'll retaliate with a counterattack. Oh, I see what you're thinking. You're going to maneuver around him and attack him from behind. Quite clever. Except no, he'll see that coming a mile away. Better get back to the drawing board, or just wait for him to stop guarding. Aside from all that, his ego can sometimes get the better of him, since he will occasionally taunt you without guarding just because he feels like it. And yep, he's open to attack at that point. It's quite satisfying. And that's it for his attacks, but there are a couple other things that are worth mentioning, mainly in regards to how this fight is a good demonstration on how important it is to be aware of your environment while in combat. If you fall off the side of this little plateau, you'll automatically lose the fight, and there are plenty of instances in this game where falling off a cliff while in combat is a genuine concern, so it'd be wise to adjust your strategy in these situations. Also, you can climb up these trees during the fight too. This won't really help much, unless you want a quick breather and a bit of personal space, although it is kind of fun to watch him jump around and get annoyed.
Don't tell me you're giving up already!
And that's the last of the Destiny Island fights. Unless... Nah, that's it. But with all that done, you can check in with Kairi so you can set sail, get off this island, and have an adventure. Except you won't be doing any of that, since you've just been invaded, you got a giant key that's probably not important, and you woke up in a strange town with bucket loads of trauma. So, how do you feel? He's doing great. Hello. Thank you for watching to the end of the video. So this is the second scripted, edited video that I've done. The first being my Can You Beat Ty the Tasmanian Tiger Opalist video that I did a while ago. You can see that if you're interested. And I feel like this one is a bit more silly and goofy, I think, compared to the first one I did. And I'm not sure how okay I am with that. I think whatever video I make next, I think I want to try and dial back on the silliness and maybe try and be a little bit more serious. You know, I still just want to try stuff out. So links to all my social media and stuff is in the description below. Also, a link to my Twitch channel is also in the description. I tend to stream over on Twitch quite regularly, so you can check that out if you're at all interested. But with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, stay safe, and hope to see you again very soon. Take care.